The Black Death was not just a disease, it was a shock that tore through the heart of medieval Europe. Between 1347 and 1351, a wave of bubonic plague traveled along trade routes from Asia, slipped into Mediterranean ports on merchant ships, and then spread inland along rivers, roads, and market towns. In some regions, it killed a third of the population, in others half, and in a few places it felt as if entire communities had simply vanished. People saw streets go quiet, churches half empty, and neighbors who had been healthy in the morning lying dead by night. The symptoms were brutal and terrifying. It often began with sudden fever, chills, headaches, and exhaustion so heavy that people could barely stand. Then came the buboes, agonizing, swollen lumps in the armpits, neck, or groin, darkening as blood and pus built up under the skin. Many victims developed black patches as internal bleeding spread, which is one of the reasons later generations called it the Black Death. For families watching, it felt like a curse moving from bed to bed. A person could fall ill on a Monday and be dead before the week was over. Medieval Europe had no real idea what was happening. People did not know about bacteria, fleas, or rats. They only saw an invisible force killing rich and poor, priests and peasants, children and elders. Many believed it was a punishment from God for the sins of society, or a sign that the end of the world was near. In some towns, long processions of flagellants walked through the streets, whipping themselves in public as an appeal for mercy. Others crowded into churches, lit candles, prayed for protection, or made desperate promises to the saints. When prayer did not stop the dying, fear turned into anger. Fear almost always looks for someone to blame. In some regions, rumors spread that minorities, especially Jewish communities, had poisoned wells or spread the disease on purpose. These accusations were completely false, but in a world without scientific explanations, they felt like an answer to the unanswerable. Pogroms and massacres followed, adding human violence to a disaster that was already killing without discrimination. In other places, people attacked lepers, travelers, or anyone who seemed different, convinced that if they drove out the supposed source of infection, the plague would leave with them. Beyond the horror inside homes and streets, the Black Death quietly broke the machinery of medieval life. Fields went untilled because there were not enough laborers to work them. Harvests rotted, animals wandered without owners, and in some villages, no one was left to ring the church bells or bury the dead. Records from the time show abandoned houses, empty workshops, and manors whose lords had no tenants left to pay rent. In towns, guilds lost masters and apprentices. In the countryside, landlords who once had more peasants than land suddenly found the opposite. When the worst waves finally passed, Europe was a different place. So many workers had died that those who survived became far more valuable. Peasants and laborers could demand higher wages or better conditions, and in some areas they simply walked away from harsh lords to find new masters or vacant land. Attempts by rulers to freeze wages and tie peasants back to the soil often led to revolts and uprisings. The old feudal order, which had relied on a huge supply of cheap, easily replaced labor, began to weaken. Over the long term, the Black Death helped push Europe toward a more flexible, money-based economy. Landowners who could no longer rely on traditional obligations started paying wages or renting land for cash. Some shifted from grain to more profitable activities that needed fewer workers, like sheep raising. At the same time, the trauma of the plague changed how many people thought about faith, fate, and authority. If priests and nobles could not stop the disease, their automatic claim to know all the answers no longer seemed so certain. The Black Death did not single-handedly end the Middle Ages, but it cracked the foundations of the world that existed before, changing who had power, how people worked, and how they understood the fragile line between ordinary life and sudden catastrophe. Follow Fabulae for more short stories from history.